Yeah, I come down to your district all the time. I go to Coney Island and Brighton Beach. So I bike down on Ocean Parkway, take the Q train.
They're fixing this bike.
I know, it's like mountain biking.
Yes.
I get a lot of exercise. You know, it's easier to bike in the roadway.
Starting in September,
The whole thing.
also Polish and
Yeah. It's nice too, they planted a lot of trees. That's good, but the pavement is awful.
And also they're gonna fix stuff in front of the Korean hospital. Nobody can in, nobody can get out.
Yeah.
It's messy.
It's messy and
Also
yeah.
gonna fix it.
It's dangerous under the bridge. Biking under the bridge is terrible.
Also messes. Plus stuff they put out there across. Cars cannot come, people cannot come. Everybody's complaining. It's gonna be fixed.
Okay. The boardwalk too. I know you've been tweeting a lot about that. Yeah. There's more sand on the boardwalk than wood. I know. Those are three terrible words, but they're good words. I might use those words.
When we talked about night shots,
Yeah, true.
the council is talking about $40 million. Yes, it's true, it is invested. It's all for fun. But then kind of politics. How much money do you visit plastic television? How much money do you respond to constitution for like $40 billion, for example? And I can go on and on and on. No, it's not. It's not a the pure laziness. That means at City Hall. Negligence, just like lack of accountability.
Yeah, the accountability is huge. I think it's a key preservation for streets.
I talked to federal monitor.
Yeah.
Talk to federal monitor. Forget about patch. Not you as a federal monitor. Go to your website. Go to your website. 2019 was like
All good.
How
you doing?
How are you?
I'm awesome. Better now.
Hey, Councilwoman.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
Here, everybody's ready?
I think so. Could all the participants join us? Yeah? Gather around, guys. Gather around. All right. I'm just going to quickly open and pass it to you.
Okay, you got it.
All right.
Cool.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get something out of the way right away. This is going to be a no-shame press conference, all right?
Absolutely.
So if you've ever been caught out there on the streets of New York City and you had to go and there was no open restroom or not one that was working that you could find, will you please raise your hand? Yes, indeed. We're human beings. You're not a New Yorker if you haven't been caught out there at least once. It shouldn't be this way. We're here to say New York City must do better. That for the sake of our public health, for equity, for dignity, we need more public bathrooms.
Yes.
You guys with me on that? And we have an amazing alliance of allies here. I'm going to pass it off to a moment to the phenomenal Rita Joseph, council member from Brooklyn. Brooklyn's a little overrepresented here today. We are also in the presence of Ari Kagan, council member from Brooklyn.
Yay, Brooklyn!
And we're going to hear from a constellation of advocates, social media glitterati, and more. We got a great lineup for you. It is now my pleasure to present the lead sponsor in the New York City Council of historic legislation to expand access to public bathrooms, Councilmember Rita Joseph.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I know. As a former teacher, I know. Gotta go. But never a place to go in New York. So we're going to change that with this intro to 258. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rita Joseph, and I have the privilege of representing Central Brooklyn in the New York City Council. I'd like to thank you, Mark Levine, Borough President, for your collaboration on this legislation. Borough President Levine has been outspoken and champion on this issue for years, and I'm grateful for his partnership. Let me give him a round of applause. Woo! I'd like to also thank Chairwoman Selvina Brooks-Powers for allowing this bill to be heard today, and a big thank you to my colleagues in government, Ari Kagan from Brooklyn, in government, who stand with us today in support of restroom equity in 5 boroughs. Today we're hearing Intro 258 will be an important step towards ensuring all New Yorkers have access to public restrooms when we pass it. When we pass our bill, we require the city to publish a report on feasible locations to install public bathrooms in every zip code across the 5 boroughs.
Every zip code.
Yes, every zip code. Passing this bill is the first step to get public bathrooms to New York City. The city lacks a public restroom is a multifaceted issue. It's an issue of equity, public health, sanitation, and basic human rights. So gotta go. New York City currently ranks 93rd out of the 100 largest cities. U.S. cities in the number of public bathrooms per capita. Is that acceptable? No. It's absolutely crucial that all neighborhoods across our city have public restrooms. Our city lack available, accessible for clean bathrooms disproportionately harms New Yorkers who are unhoused, elderly, disabled, pregnant women, menstruating, or other medical condition. It's bad for New Yorkers. It's also bad for tourism. I've traveled across the globe and I've seen restrooms in all over the cities except mine. So that's unacceptable. This bill is about restroom access. It's about public health, public safety, and equity. And to end on one final note, when our city, state, and nation can be so divided, public restroom access is an issue that impacts everyone. Making our city cleaner and more livable is a non-bipartisan, common sense issue. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, whichever party you belong to, using the bathroom doesn't have any political affiliation. We're here to say, let's build a city where clean, readily accessible public restrooms are reality. With that, I'd like to pass the mic over to my new partner in crime, Mark Levine.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, council member. So we've run the numbers. There is one public bathroom in New York City for every 6,000 residents. Let that image sink in for a minute. That puts us not just behind other major global capitals, but as the council member said, we're ranked 93rd in America on bathrooms per capita. Now, it's one thing to lose out to Paris. I could maybe deal with that. But I'm not going to lose out to Columbus. I'm sorry. New York City can do better. We must do better. This represents a failure of government and a failure of willpower. There are 15 ready to go automated public bathrooms sitting in a warehouse in Queens. They've been there for years, waiting to be installed with the lack of will to get it done. So we're going to force this issue onto the agenda with this legislation, and we're taking a zip code approach. We want at least one more bathroom in every zip code. There are zip codes in New York City today that have 0 functioning and open public bathrooms. Like in my neck of the woods, 10032, Southern Washington Heights, 0 functioning public bathrooms. Most of the bathrooms that we have are in parks. They're neighborhoods that don't have parks. And so it impacts enormous inequality on this issue. Access to public bathrooms is a health issue, as the council member mentioned. It is a transportation issue, which you're going to hear from advocates, because in order to move around the city on mass transit or on foot, on a bicycle, you need access to this infrastructure. It's a women's issue, as the council member said. It's a tourism issue, and therefore it is an economic development issue. It's also particularly important for unhoused New Yorkers. This touches many aspects of social policy here, and it is universally popular across the spectrum. All we need is the will to get it done. So I'm thrilled that we're going to hear next from a star of social media, someone who, in the most difficult days of the pandemic, began a campaign that helped us find open and decent public restrooms in New York. You know her as GetToGoNYC. Please join me in welcoming Teddy Siegel. Come on up, Teddy.
We're going to invite Ari Kagan next.
And then we'll get Ari next. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. The lack of sanitary, accessible, and public bathrooms in New York City is a violation of basic human rights. I was inspired to create my account GetToGoNYC last year on July 15th after nearly peeing my pants in Times Square. After multiple establishments had turned me away, I made it to a McDonald's, and they allowed me to use the bathroom, but only after I bought a water for $3. The bathroom didn't even have a code. I thought to myself, if only I had a resource that showed me where the bathroom was located, I could have walked right up to the second floor and used the bathroom without spending my money. So I created exactly that. Since last year, it has been my mission to make sure that I could prevent as many New Yorkers and tourists alike from having to pay to do a basic bodily function. Besides posting pictures and videos detailing the locations of sanitary and accessible bathrooms, I've also created a shared Google Maps list, which to date has 441 bathrooms across all 5 boroughs. I'm here today to not only speak on my beliefs, but as a representative of my GetToGoNYC community, which currently has a cumulative of over 150,000 followers across all social media platforms. I have learned from my followers that the issue at hand is twofold. As well as being a public health crisis, the lack of sanitary, accessible, and public bathrooms in New York City is also an equity crisis. Marginalized groups are bearing the brunt of the city's failures. In February of this year, a man commented on my page, "As a black man who does deliveries at night, I don't even bother trying at this point. I understand that as a cis white straight woman, my appearance gives me an inherent privilege. I can walk into most hotels and use their lobby bathroom without being questioned or just flat out told to leave. This is not the case for the majority of New Yorkers. I have had the privilege of speaking with a homeless couple who were denied the bathroom code to a cafe solely based on their appearance, even after offering to buy a drink with their limited funds. This is New York City, the greatest city in the world. Why are we ranked 93rd in the nation when it comes to bathrooms per capita? Why was a 27-year-old New York City resident forced to bleed through her pants in a CVS while holding a box of tampons she bought, begging to use the restroom? Why does a 22-year-old camp counselor at Prospect Park have no choice but to change children in a bathroom where human feces was smeared on the walls and floors for days on end, despite having reported it to the Parks Department? Why did a tourist from London have to witness her elderly friend wet herself because they couldn't find an accessible restroom in time? While this bill is only one tiny step in the right direction to fix this issue, I believe that it could positively impact the lives of millions. It is of the utmost importance for New Yorkers and tourists alike to know where to go without needing to take out their wallet. Thank you.
All right, Teddy. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to... Okay. Oh, yes, indeed. I am pleased to welcome up Councilmember Ari Kagan. Come on up, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Wow. For customers only. We are all customers, all of us, residents of New York City, tourists, everyone who calls New York home and who wants to visit New York City has the same issue. We need to go somewhere, like we need to visit something, without just paying for a drink or getting to a cafe or restaurant. So huge credit goes to Manhattan Borough President Mark Levin and my great, amazing colleague, council member Rita Joseph and all our advocates. This issue is not just bipartisan, it's a common sense. We want to make New York City livable to everyone. It's not an issue even of equity. It's issue of being normally alive in New York City, because when you need to go and you cannot go, you're dying. You're physically strained, so. And on top of this, we have issues with bathrooms in subway, in parks. And I remember after Superstorm Sandy in our southern Brooklyn, federal government made the first priority to build humongous public bathrooms on the beach. They said this is a priority for everyone. So why it's not a priority for everyone to have public bathrooms in New York City? Why we need to live in such a huge capital of the world and suffer from without such a basic necessity? So to me it's a no-brainer. It should be passed 51-0 with no abstentions, by the way. If someone will abstain, we will close the restroom in City Hall for this person. So. Should pass unanimously, and it should be we should start construction of everything this year. Thank you so much. Definitely I'm in this fight.
All right.
Woo! Thank you, Ari.
Playing hardball in the city council.
Yes.
All right. I would like to ask Sarah Lynn to come up from OpenPlans NYC. All right.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Lind. I'm the Director of Policy at OpenPlans. We are a nonprofit that is focused on building a livable city. We envision a city with open streets and plazas and greenways, like we're going to hear about next after this bill, where people can use active transport to get where they need to go, where they can enjoy the public spaces in our city, where they can hang out on our streets and see their neighbors, build community. But you can't do any of that if you don't know where you're going to be able to find a restroom on your way to wherever you're going or wherever you're hanging out. So this is an equity issue, it's a public health issue, but it's also a livability issue. We can't build the city that so many of us want if we can't find a place to use the restroom when we're trying to be out there having fun. So we're super excited to be here supporting this bill, and we're so glad it's in every zip code and that so many council members are supporting it. We want to say, let's get this done. So we're gonna have some reports. We're gonna be going to our community boards. We're gonna be going to our council members, asking them, where do you want these public bathrooms sited? So it's one thing to say, we're here, we want public bathrooms, but we next need you to tell us where you want them and don't, NIMBY this issue. We need these public bathrooms and we need you to stand up and be brave and put them somewhere in your district. So we're super excited for this, and next up, let's get it done, let's get them placed. Thank you.
All right, Sarah, thank you. We are thrilled to have the support of Transportation Alternatives here, but I think that they're represented. Can you speak on behalf of TA?
I can speak. So I'm the Staten Island and South Brooklyn organizer. I can speak on behalf of my folks, and we have the Staten organizer. And we have.
Come on up. Come on up. Oh, you can both come on up.
Staten Island also
Come
needs
together.
public
Yes, indeed. Manhattan, come on up, guys.
Come on up. Every zip code, so you represent.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi,
Tell us your name and your role
sure.
at TA.
Yeah, my name is Alice Shao, and thank you. I have a homegrown bathroom finder app called Toodaloo, which I started last year in response to the difficulty of finding bathrooms, similar to GetToGo's Google Maps. But these homegrown solutions really aren't a permanent solution. We need the government to step in and create more public restrooms. The burden right now is on private businesses to maintain, clean, and operate these bathrooms, which is so tough because, as we know, the pandemic has already created razor-thin profit margins for them. So what we need is real publicly funded restrooms as a permanent solution.
All right, thank you
you.
so much. We have been joined by another one of the stars of the New York City Council, Council Member Savannah Brooks Powers. Great to see you. Welcome, Council Member. We'll give you a sec to catch your breath, but we're going to cue you in a minute. Did we have our other TA rep wanted to speak, or we'll move on from there? Yeah? Did you want to speak, or you go? Come on up real quick and tell us your name and role.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Rose Yushinowski. I am the Staten Island and the South Brooklyn organizer over at Transportation Alternatives. And I also used to work once upon a time as a bike delivery worker. So I know how important bathroom access is from multiple viewpoints. So I'll speak first and very quickly. As a former bike delivery worker, I've done food deliveries during the pandemic when many restaurants were not opening up their doors to delivery workers because of fears. And during that time, there were workers who had to work 5 or more hours without bathroom access if they could not find public restrooms because restaurants were not opening their doors. And I can tell you that it's an issue. It's an issue for public hygiene. It's an issue for individual dignity. It's an issue around just trying to make money. And it's an issue where folks who can afford to go to a restaurant and say, fine, I will buy a cheap meal just to use the restroom, they can do so. Folks who can't, they're the ones who are left out. So guess what? It's also an economic issue, an income inequality issue. It's just a human rights issue on so many fronts. And as a representative of transportation alternatives, I can tell you that it's also an issue of just trying to get around the city. If you're trying to plan your trip and you know that you're going to need to use a bathroom, say you're a pregnant woman, say you just have a long trip, say you have some kind of a health issue where you need more public restroom access, then you do not have the same access to public space as other people do. And that is unacceptable. So I applaud both you and Rita Joseph, and I'm glad to be here today.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, TA. Start making your way up. Councilmember Brooks Powers. Did we mention we want a public bathroom in every zip code, even in Queens?
Even
Queens
in
too?
Queens.
All
That's
right.
That's right. So good afternoon, everyone. I could get a little bit more energy, like we're excited. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. There we go.
I am proud to be here with Councilwoman Joseph, also my colleague, Councilmember Kagan, Manhattan Borough President Levine, and the rest of our colleagues here and advocates, including GetToGoNYC and our other advocates. So thank you all for being here today to stand for such an important issue. The pandemic has certainly shown us that there are always new opportunities to rethink our public space for the better. That's why I'm so proud to chair today's hearing, where we will discuss 3 important bills and continue examining how we can transform our open spaces to better meet the needs of our communities. Restrooms are infrastructure. Public restrooms have always been hard to find in New York, and when private restrooms are increasingly inaccessible, that's a question of equity that we must work to rectify. That's why it's up to this committee and this council to ensure that efforts like this are undertaken and to push the administration to continue building systems that prioritize equity, accessibility, and inclusion. We need to think holistically about how all facets of our city's space live up to that standard, and public restrooms are no exception. So we will be engaging with the Department of Transportation, parks, and all involved stakeholders to figure out how we can bring equitable and safe restroom access to every neighborhood.
All right, yes. Even Southeast Queens?
Even Southeast Queens.
All right.
This council is truly committed to fighting for a public space that benefits all New Yorkers. I'm looking forward to this afternoon's vital discussion, and as someone who loves traveling and see public restrooms when you go to other countries, we need it in the world's best city, New York City. And so again, thank you so much for the continued advocacy and support around this most critical issue. Thank you.
Councilmember Brooks Powers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we talked about delivery workers. We talked about regular people. What about street vendors? Yeah. They need public bathrooms too. So I would like to invite Hannah Taufik to please join us.
Hello.
Thank you.
Good afternoon all. My name is Hannah Taufik and I'm an organizer at the Street Vendor Project. As a native New Yorker, I know how difficult it is to go to a public restroom. But my work with the street vendors across the city, it's become clear to me that the lack of clean, accessible bathrooms disproportionately affects vendors. In a survey I conducted last year, I was alarmed to hear that an overwhelming majority of vendors answered no when asked if they had regular access to a public restroom during their shifts. For some, that means having to walk miles to the nearest restroom, leaving their carts unattended, sometimes for more than 30 minutes, which is actually a violation of the Department of Health. So they get ticketed for this, multiple fines. For others, it means having to resort to unorthodox methods to relieve themselves a blatant offense on their dignity. Many vendors are elderly or ill, making it difficult for them to ignore the call of nature. For many Muslim vendors who have to pray 5 times a day and perform ablution, without access to restrooms, they are unable to fulfill their religious rights. The addition of a public restroom in every zip code will not solve the accessibility issue as a whole, but it's a great start for vendors in areas like Times Square, who are oftentimes turned away from big businesses when asked to use their bathrooms. On behalf of SVP and street vendors all over the city, I urge the council to take into consideration the needs of their communities and safeguard the cleanliness of our beloved city and preserve the dignity of its people. Thank you.
All right, street vendor project. Thank you, Hannah. 4 community boards in Manhattan, 1, 4, 5, and 6 have banded together to form the Public Restrooms Task Force. Do we have any reps from the various community boards here? Well, we're just going to applaud for them. Do you want to speak for? Come on up. All right.
I'm Mimi Flynn from Manhattan Community Board 1, and we have been working since January learning about public restrooms in the city that have been particularly successful, including the famous Bryant Park in Bryant Park and the bathrooms in Battery Park City. We've worked so hard, and we're really excited to see these bills be heard and be written. So thank you so much. I have to say that every single day I have to use a restroom, and everyone I know also has to use a restroom. And I understand that that's just, my story in life, but I believe it's for everyone too. Thank you.
Kind of universal, I would
Yes.
say. Awesome. Okay. What a lineup. So, the council member and I would be happy to take on-topic questions.
There's some issues.
Español. Sí.
People worry how they're going to be kept clean. I mean, Bryant Park has a conservancy that takes care of their bathroom. How do you keep these clean? And also, number 2, this bill is just to identify places, not to actually make it happen. So, can you talk about first of all,
You want to take first crack at it?
process?
What do you want to do for cleanliness?
How long is this going to take?
Sure. There's amazing technology now in some of these bathrooms that's entirely automated that essentially can sanitize between uses. The door locks for just a few seconds, and either it can be through ultraviolet or through chemical cleaning. This is already in place in these kind of automated bathrooms around the world. You also need staffing, and we're here as advocates for well-staffed bathrooms, whether they're in parks or in other public places. So part of having a dignified infrastructure of public bathrooms is also fully funding the staffing to clean. Do you want to take the point on the plan versus implementation, or?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just the beginning, the first step of looking where we can build them, not the process of building them already. So it's just a report to see where we can build them, what zip codes, which includes all 5 boroughs, to make sure that we're looking at where we can build them.
I mean, do you need a bill to install these? Do you need a bill to do it, or just an appropriation in the budget to do it?
Both.
Yes, we need both. We think this will be a major step forward. We continually hear from agencies that these installations are not feasible because of either water or sewage access or other considerations. So this bill will force them to put on the table at least one feasible location in every zip code. We think that's the biggest obstacle. The funding is less of an obstacle than you think, because these can be supported with advertising. In fact, the city has a contract with JCDecaux that required them to install 20. As we know, I mentioned 15 of those 20 are sitting in a warehouse. That wasn't about funding. That was about bureaucratic obstacles. So we're going to cut through the biggest challenges here with this bill, and I think that's the momentum that we need.
Would this include the subway, and also what would you say to those who are worried about them being used for drugs?
So this is not in the purview of the bill because we don't have oversight over the MTA.
Right.
Personally, I strongly believe the MTA needs to reopen the bathrooms in its system.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
over 70. They were closed under pretense of the pandemic. I'm not sure whether that was ever justified, but at this point, there's no justification. We need those bathrooms opened throughout the system. That certainly is part of the solution here, but we're really focused on public space above ground here. Was there another question?
Yeah, about people being worried they might be used for drugs.
Oh, I completely reject this. We do have a crisis, a human rights crisis in New York City of the number of unhoused New Yorkers, and this problem is not going to make that worse. This problem will allow those New Yorkers the dignity of a place to go, and that's a win for everybody. That's a win for the individual. who was experiencing homeless, it's also better for the community. So I reject the criticism that this is bad for quality of life. I think this is a universal quality of life win for everybody.
People can do drugs on the bench.
Yeah.
Right.
Español, por favor.
Okay.
Un poquito.
Probablemente en español después hablamos uno a uno. Venimos aquí a favor de un proyecto de ley con la concejal Rita Joseph, que se va a tener una audiencia pública ahora mismo, que requiere que la ciudad de Nueva York ponga por lo menos un baño público abierto al público en cada código postal de 214 códigos postales a través de los 5 condados, lo que hace falta en Nueva York, lo que hay en otras ciudades alrededor del mundo y del país y lo que no hay en Nueva York. Así que ya es hora de que haya por lo menos un baño público abierto las 24 horas en cada código postal. Se trata de este tema hoy mismo.
Cuando hayan esos baños, va a haber la necesidad de empleados. ¿Puede hablar de eso?
Claro, hay limpieza automática, la tecnología se ha progresado mucho. Además, limpieza, claro, tiene que ser parte del plan y lo va a hacer.
¿Y en los subways se puede decir eso que dijo antes? Que abran también en la parte de...
Este proyecto de ley se trata de los baños al nivel de las calles, aceras y parques, pero a la vez yo estoy abogando y yo creo que toda esta coalición está abogando para que reabran todos los baños públicos de nuestro sistema de tren subterráneo, los cuales hay más de 70. Thank you, Norma. Okay. Absolutely. I reject. Look, we have 1,400 public bathrooms in New York City today. This is not a radical new concept. Now that number, weighed against a city of 8.5 million, is paltry. I gave the stat before. That's 1 per 6,000 residents. So it's wholly inefficient and not equally distributed. There's zip codes that have 0. But we have 1,400 bathrooms, and they're working when there's adequate staffing and maintenance. When there's adequate staffing and maintenance, these are incredibly important amenities, and they are not leading to a degradation of quality of life. They are improving quality of life. We just need more of them. There's just no denying.
Right, but the staffing and maintenance, that's the big dollar. That's in order if you don't have that, then it doesn't matter where you ID them, they're there. Isn't that the big part?
Yeah, look, this coalition is committed to getting these installed, and we are committed to getting them well maintained. That is the recipe for a successful public bathroom.
Can you talk specifically about past efforts that failed and what's about this one?
So as I referenced, when the city was rolling out the new bus shelters, they also had a component of the contract that included public bathrooms. And the city actually was given 20 of these units. A grand total of 5 were installed. The other 15 are in a warehouse in Queens. I have never gotten an adequate answer for why that effort stalled. It's something we're going to ask in our hearing. Well, I won't ask, but our council colleagues will definitely be asking. I keep forgetting I'm no longer a member of the council, but I will be testifying.
Yes.
We're going to try and get answers. They cited technical challenges of getting access to water. I think they cited some NIMBYism. But you know, we've got community boards that are fighting for this. We have 4 community boards who have formed a task force in Manhattan. I think after the pandemic, when all the restaurants closed, there's nobody in New York City who didn't realize how bad this situation is. And we've got social media stars who have helped get that word out. So I think the willpower is there. We can get this done as long as the city stops being an obstacle.
How many bathrooms out of those 1,400 out of service? How many would that be?
And how many what?
How many we will need?
Right.
We don't have a number yet. One of the things we're also calling on the MTAs to maintain the ones they have in the subways, to keep them clean and maintain them. They've been closed for the past 2 years since the pandemic, and we get calls all the time from neighbors that they're on the platform and there's nowhere to go.
How many are out of service?
Mostly all of them were shut during the pandemic.
In
I
the
don't have a
subway?
number.
No, but not only MTA.
The out of the 1,400. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know.
We're going to have to ask the administration that.
Yes.
Hopefully they'll give us that data.
You got a question from Pitch over there?
I've heard from the parents of two male parents of an infant. They're not able to find a public bathroom in a men's room that has a changing table. Any plans to fix that?
Absolutely accessible for parents as well. We said that from pregnant women, accessible to all. So that's the issue. You go into bathrooms, and we're thinking of that because our New York is changing. There's 2 parents. We want to put changing tables in the men's bathroom as well.
Absolutely.
Men change children all the time.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
All right.
Favorite public bathroom, or one that's doing it particularly well that you want to shout out?
I'd like Parade Grounds in Brooklyn. That's one of the best kept public bathrooms, and she takes pride in her work.
I got to give a Manhattan answer to that. I'm sorry.
Brooklyn.
But the public bathroom in Bryant Park is extraordinary. They have fresh cut flowers, and it's well staffed and maintained. It's an example of what a bathroom can be. We just need more of them.
Yep. Agreed.
Any other questions?
Are there any other cities in the U.S. where you may be taking similar
Well, we did we ran the numbers. We determined that we're ranked 93rd nationally. So I guess we have 92 other cities to learn from.
Yes,
and we plan on it. I'm not sure about one of them, but if you want to sponsor a road trip, we may join you.
Yes, definitely.
Great.
Yay!
Thank you all.